Well, this is it. We've made it to the big one. Um, I know I said that when it comes to misused punctuation, that commas were the king. I think that's wrong. I think actually apostrophes are the most misused punctuation mark. So we're going to learn about them, and you then will no longer be one of those people using apostrophes wrong. And you can have the satisfaction of pointing at the sign and saying that apostrophe shouldn't be there. It's a nice feeling. Okay, so apostrophes. What are they supposed to do? Well, there are basically two things that an apostrophe is for. One, you see them in contractions, right? Like can't, don't. They have an apostrophe in them. That is the first use of the apostrophe, to take the place of letters that have been left out of a contraction. So because it's usually can not, you're taking out the N and the O and putting in an apostrophe to make it can't. Or have not, haven't. Taking out the O, you add an apostrophe. And that one you should be familiar with, maybe not as a rule of using apostrophes, but just from, you know, reading and writing, you come across contractions all the time. So contractions are the first thing that you want to think of when you think of apostrophes. The second thing, and it's only these two things, the second thing is to show possession. So, to be clear, an apostrophe is never used to make something plural. It is only used in a contraction or to make something possessive. Possessive, meaning, you know, Jimmy's car. The car belongs to Jimmy. Jimmy possesses the car. Therefore, we add an apostrophe and an S. Right? Again, you probably know this. But it gets to the point where people, for whatever crazy reason, think that they can use them to make nouns plural. And that is not right. That is very wrong. But you will see it everywhere. And like I said, you will now have the pleasure of knowing that it is wrong. So, a possessive noun, like I just said, Jimmy's car, or the country's military. Country apostrophe S. The country possesses the military. Plurals, slightly different, right? If it's the monk's quarters, you're talking about more than one monk. So you would actually put it after the S and just leave it, right? If it's a plural noun that ends in an S, then you just put an apostrophe after the S and you're done, okay? You don't make it the monkses, just the monks. So, apostrophe after a plural noun ending in S. Okay, there are other plural nouns that don't end in S, like women, right? It's plural of woman, but it doesn't have an S on the end. So in that case, you can do the apostrophe S that you would normally do on a singular noun. So the women's right is women apostrophe S. The women's right to vote. There's two discretionary uses of the apostrophe, but I'll save those to the end. The next thing you need to know about possession is joint possession and separate possession when there are two parties. Two parties meaning two people, two organizations, two countries, two whatever. So if it's Bob and Ann and they own a house, Is it Bob's and Ann's house, or is it Bob and Ann's house? See the difference? Do you put an apostrophe S before the first person and the second person, or just after the second person? That was a pause so you could answer. And the correct answer is after only the second person. So Bob and Ann's house. Bob and Ann, apostrophe S, house. Bob and Ann's house, not Bob's and Ann's house. Now, if Bob and Ann have two separate houses, like Bob's house and Ann's house, then you can say Bob's and Ann's houses. Okay? So that, notice the house becomes plural there. And then you can use the apostrophe with each of them, Bob and Ann, because they don't own the same house, right? They don't possess the same thing. It's a plural thing that they're possessing, and they possess it separately. So Bob's and Ann's houses, or if it's them together, just Bob and Ann's house. Okay? Making sense? I hope so. Now, the two discretionary uses of an apostrophe, again, that just means it's up to you to decide which way you want to do it, whether you want to add an apostrophe or not. That's what discretionary means. Just use your discretion, use your common sense, and your wisdom, your problem solving. All of that comes into discretion. So, you see this a lot with people's names. Like, what's a name that ends in S? Chris, right? Do you put an apostrophe S after Chris, or do you just put an apostrophe because it ends in S, right? Like a plural would. And if it were a plural noun, you would just add the apostrophe after the S. In that case, either is fine. They are both correct. It depends if you want it to say Chris' house or Chris's house. You just pronounce them differently because of the apostrophe S that you would add if you chose that route, right? So you could add apostrophe S and make it Chris's, or you could just put an apostrophe after the S in Chris, and you would still pronounce it Chris. Chris' house. I like to do the apostrophe S, but again, it's discretionary. It's up to you. The other one is after numbers. If people want to make, not even just numbers, but sometimes things like DVD. Like if you want to make it plural, sometimes people will put DVD apostrophe S, and some people will just write DVDS. So DVDs, how is it spelled? Does it have an apostrophe in it? Discretionary. Both are correct. If you're talking about the 1990s, do you put a apostrophe before the S at the end of 90s? Again, up to you. Discretionary. Okay? So, apostrophes are used in contractions to mark where letters have been taken out of words to join them together, and they are used to show possession. They are never used to show plural. This is the thing that people do. They try to make words plural by adding an apostrophe S. Don't do it. It is wrong. It is never right. Except where we talked about that discretionary one after a number like 1990s, or a what do we call it? the word has slipped my mind, but abbreviations like DVD. If it were just disc, then it would be a different deal. Because it's an abbreviation, DVD, it's discretionary. So outside of those discretionary uses, you do not use an apostrophe to make something plural. And if I can get one punctuation rule across to you, that is it. Do not use apostrophes to make something plural, because you will see it everywhere. Um, big companies that pay people to write these things for them will get it wrong. And you'll see signs on, just driving down the road, you'll see a million signs that say apostrophe S when they just want to make it plural. So please don't do that. That is just wrong. Okay? So apostrophes, possessive, contractions, two discretionary uses after abbreviations and numbers. You can use apostrophe S or just an S. And words that end in S already, do you want to put an apostrophe or an apostrophe S? Discretionary. Okay? That is apostrophes. Simple as that. And there will be 2 IXL skills that you'll need to do with apostrophes that will be due on Friday. Other than that, have a great day. Don't forget to put where you are in Dracula. And I think that's it. I think that's it for today. Okay. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you read something today. All right. See ya.